Hello, everybody. Welcome to a review, reaction, discussion of the season finale of Last of Us. Um, uh, Boy, oh boy, does that hit hard again, even more. Um, uh, it is the age-old question of would you doom all of humanity to save your child? That's a hell of a question. I know what the right answer is, and I know that the answer that most parents would give is the wrong answer. I know that's the answer I would give. So let's just go with the stuff we haven't seen yet, stuff that wasn't in the game. The ending, Dave, is the same from the game, almost exactly the same from the game. There are some narrative choices in the dialogue, and some major events talked about between the characters. Um, uh, that only serve to make the ending hit even harder. But we'll talk about those when we get to them. The opening of the episode is is stuff we've never seen before. Um, it is Ellie's mother, played by Ashley Johnson, who was Ellie in the video game, and it's her running from a lone infected through the woods to a deserted house somewhere in farmland. She expects to find people there, but nobody is there. So she bars the door downstairs. She is very pregnant. As she comes up the stairs, her water breaks. She goes into a bedroom. She bars the door with a chair, and I sits down, hopefully I don't know what she thinks. Very soon after she's in the bedroom, you can hear breaking glass downstairs and the infected screaming, and it runs up the stairs and tries to break through the door. She's got her stiletto, the one we've seen Ellie use throughout the show and the game. And the infected breaks the door down, comes at her, and she's able to fend it off. The infected, I believe, scratches her inner thigh. So a scratch is as lethal as a bite, which I did not realize. Yeah, Brent, they basically did the same thing with Ellie that they did with Blade in the Blade movies, for sure. I don't know about the Blade comics. I never read the Blade comics, but the Blade in the movie his mother was pregnant with Blade when his mother was bitten by a vampire. So that made him like a human vampire hybrid. Like he was the daywalker. He could walk around during the day, but he also needed blood to survive, all that stuff. So they basically did that with Ellie, where right before she gives birth, she's scratched, and some of the stuff enters her bloodstream, but it's not enough to kill Ellie, the baby. That she looks down between her legs after fighting off the infected, and oops, there's a baby. Oops, baby. And so she realizes she's a goner because of the scratch, But this is where we find out this is Ellie, and she cuts the umbilical cord. So just enough of that has gotten into Ellie to infect her, but not make her sick, and that's how she's immune. And this is Craig Mazin saying, I needed to know. He says, I needed to show how Ellie became immune. I needed to do that. And I get that point, because I think that it is we are to assume something, but it can't be like divine intervention. It has to be a reason for this to be for her to be immune. We have to see it, a scientific-ish reason for it. Something logical. And I'm glad they chose what they did. It makes sense. That night, some Fireflys show up to this farmhouse. One of them is Marlene, who we know from earlier in the series. Marlene comes in. This is where we find out that Anna and Marlene have been best friends since childhood. I guess Anna was supposed to meet them there, but they got hung up and couldn't get there in time. And so I guess they were trying to get pregnant Anna, get her to safety or whatever. And so Anna tells Marlene, you're going to take her. You're going to find somebody who can raise her. Give her this, my prized stiletto knife. And then you're going to kill me. And Marlene refuses originally, but eventually does it. There was one point that I thought was, well, I don't know if it was an absolute choice or what, but Marlene gives the baby to one of the Fireflies, a male Firefly, has to show him how to hold the head, and says, cover her ears. R-E, the baby. Cover her ears. Cover the baby's ears. And then she walks into the room and executes her best friend for 30 years. And the guy never covers her ears. the Firefly never covers her ears. She shoots. We hear the gunshot. The baby immediately cries, and cut to the baby having its ears not covered. So it's an odd thing that she gives an instruction to this guy who doesn't even attempt to follow it. That was just a little thing that I noticed, because that's what I do. That's how my brain works. But it is immediately heartbreaking that she has to kill her best friend who's just given birth. And it does beg the question of, like, Marlene could have raised the baby, right? Like, giving the baby up for adoption to Fedra when you are a Firefly, like, that's the part of all of this that I never got when I heard that. I think is it in a comic or like a series, a novel series or whatever, where you find out this is what happened, that Ellie's mom was best friends with Marlene, and when Ellie's mom was killed or died, she gave the baby to Marlene, and yada yada yada. Ellie grew up in a Fedra military school. If you are Marlene and you are the leader of the Fireflies and you fucking hate Fedra and all they stand for, you give your best friend's child, whose last dying wish when you had to kill her was, please find somebody to look after her. I mean, I guess, Dave, like, the baby would be safer with Fedra, I guess, but, like, are there maybe it's a thing that Fireflies aren't allowed to have kids because they slow them down, or they're too easy to I mean, like, they'll draw attention, or that they're too hard to care for. I guess it is a very yeah, they were caught and Ellie was confiscated. I suppose that's possible. Um, yeah, I suppose that's possible. I mean, I'll go along with it. If they showed it in the series, I'd be like, makes perfect sense. But they didn't show it, and so it is odd. Baby crying would draw attention to the clickers. I suppose this is the first infected in episode 9 that we've seen since what? Episode 5 or 4? The clickers are around. We got to assume they're around. They talk about them all the time, but we don't see them very often. But I suppose that's true. I'm gonna have to assume the baby was taken from the Fireflys, and because Marlene would never give it to them willingly. I'm gonna have to assume that they didn't. So anyway, after we see that, we cut to present day, them getting closer to Salt Lake City, which is where the hospital is. This is some stuff from the last chapter of the game. They really sped through it as I thought they would, but I think they sped through it in places where they didn't need to. This was by far the shortest episode of the season by several minutes, and it was the season finale, which very rarely happens. So there's some stuff in the final thing when you're walking through, and they actually reference the actual camper. There's a camper van, like an RV that. There's an RV that Joel searches while Ellie stays outside, and in that RV, on the freeway leading into Salt Lake City, he finds the bodies of 2 children who have been shot. And there have been like a sheet left over them because the parents, the father became infected and bit the mother, and the mother was dying, and so she couldn't care for the kids, so she killed them or something. It's an incredibly affecting moment in the game where we're so close to near the end, and it's another reminder to Joel that this world is fucked. That this is a family that made it out together. They're all right, and all of a sudden, in the split second, they're done. It's over. And that happens with a lot of the stuff that you find when you're exploring throughout both of the games. And it's the same camper, the same RV, in the same spot in the game as it is in the series, except for this time he just went in there and found some Chef Boyardee, which he knows that Ellie likes. Ellie is deep within her trauma throughout the beginning of this episode, deep in her trauma, remembering, probably can't get it out of her head, having to murder a man with a meat cleaver. Well, the second man. The first one was quick. Was a split-second decision. The other one, she shish kebabbed his face. So she's deep in there and can't and not able to really talk to Joel about anything. This is where I do believe that it would have been more effective in the last episode, episode 8, if we had seen Joel finding her killing David as opposed to him finding her after the whole act was done, right? Because then he would relate to that, and maybe they don't want him to. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the point is they didn't want him to be able to relate to it, what it was, to know exactly what was in her mind. Yeah. I don't know. It will continue to make me wonder if the other way is preferable. I think both ways are fine. I just don't know if I like the other way better. Whatever. So they're immediately into Salt Lake, and they this is where they find the giraffes. Now, in the game, they do a very, very nice, subtle job of, when you're walking through Salt Lake City, of having all of these old posters and billboards up advertising the Salt Lake City Zoo. They even have like one where, like, I think like the logo for the zoo is a giraffe. So like they keep showing you all of these hints about animals being around, and like there's a zoo. So it's at the same time. So when we see the giraffe in the game, we immediately go, ah, yes, the zoo. The zoo is where the giraffe is from. And in the show, there's no hint. So you see a giraffe in Salt Lake City, and I wonder how many people who had never played the game were like, what the fuck is a giraffe doing here? I mean, you have to put two and two together and go, it must have escaped from a zoo or something. But I wish they had done just that. The moment of having seen all these posters around everywhere for the zoo, and then, oh, there's a real life giraffe. Holy shit, that's very different than these posters. You know, like there's a moment there when playing the game. But the moment, not that, all that advertising absence notwithstanding, the moment where she finds the giraffe and feeds the giraffe is as beautiful and bittersweet, and somehow both uplifting and heartbreaking at the same time. It's all those same things that it was in the game. It's a beautiful, beautiful moment. I don't know where the giraffes go in wintertime. Don't ask me where the giraffes go in wintertime, folks. I know in the Salt Lake City Zoo, there's probably an indoor enclosure where they take the giraffes when it snows in the actual zoo. I don't know how a giraffe adapts to living in Salt Lake City weather. I don't know how that would happen. But we're going to have to take their word for it. But it is a beautiful moment in the game and in the series where she finds the giraffe, feeds the giraffe. And it's Joel watching her be a kid, being her gleeful, childlike, wondrous self, that he really understands how much he's grown to care for her and love her as though she was his own daughter. And this leads to him now admitting something to her that was not in the game. I'm sure I would have seen this. Oh, no. This is another thing. There's a moment where he says, "Hey, why don't we just go back? You know, because we could just let's just go find Tommy. It'd be cool. We don't need to go to that hospital. I mean, it's probably crawling with clickers." The thing is, in the game, every place they go is crawling with clickers. There's clickers everywhere, and runners, and bloaters. There's fucking clickers, like, everywhere in the game. And so when he says to her, well, we should probably go because it's not safe. You know, we don't even need to go to the hospital. Because think of all the clickers we're going to have to run into between here and there. You go, yeah, I guess that's right. There are a lot of clickers. Especially because in the game we got to like go into the subways and stuff, and it's like there's a lot of fucking clickers at the subways. This seems to be a place where they like to hang out. I don't know if they like $5 footlongs or what, but you can't not find a clicker in the subway. Anyway, in the show, they're just not there. They're not around. They haven't had to deal with infected since Kansas City. Maybe they have, but we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it. No clickers. So, it is odd that they're like, it's not safe. It's not safe. It's not safe at all. I get that he's lying because he just doesn't want. He wants to make sure that she's safe. He's protecting her. But the specifics of the clickers being everywhere in the game changes stuff. And when she says, like, this all can't be for nothing, I don't know if this is something I don't remember from the game. Because I remember playing the game and wondering, like, why they didn't have a conversation leading up to the finality where Ellie tells Joel, no matter what, I don't care if it kills me, I need to make sure I'm the cure. All of the stuff, everyone who died to help me get here, that all can't be for nothing, even if it kills me. This is my choice, Joel. Honor that choice. Because then Joel's betrayal of that choice is even more devastating. I remember thinking, well, Joel didn't know that she didn't want to be killed to save the world, so he assumed she wouldn't want to be. But I'm not. My mind is probably playing tricks on me here. It's a Mandela effect kind of thing. I need to go back and watch that scene again and remember and find out exactly the words that were said. But the next scene that happens, I know isn't in the game. I know it isn't in the game, where they talk about his scar on his head, and I should have spotted this when they mentioned it so quickly in passing in an earlier episode. With the scar, he says somebody shot me and missed. And then tonight in this episode, he says, I was the guy. I was the guy who shot and missed. It was the day after Sarah died. I was ready. There was nothing left. Nothing I needed anymore. That's done. I'm done. And I'm going to kill myself. But then he flinched at the moment he pulled the trigger, which saved his life. And he tells her this, and he also tells her that the reason that he is a fan theory for the longest time, they finally confirmed it. All right, Brent, very good. Thank you. About the scar on his head that he tried to kill himself. But the confirming it was really good. But him telling her, like, time didn't heal the wounds of losing my daughter. He doesn't say, you did. I found somebody else that I can love that way. Because that would be kind of weird if he said it that way. But she understands that's what he means. She understands that's what he means. That's what he's thinking. then they are attacked by Fireflys. Now, in the game, they are in the subways, and there's a incredible, very fast, rushing, deep, underground river that's flowing through the subways, an incredible rate of speed, rapids and stuff. And Ellie falls in. Well, Joel actually falls in, and he's inside a subway being pulled through it by the rushing currents. And Ellie is able to get him to safety, but then falls in herself, and he has to swim and save her because she can't swim. And when he finally pulls her back up to the surface, he's trying to give her CPR, and Fireflies show up. Fireflies show up and tell him to get his hands up or whatever, and he won't because he's trying to save her life, and he gets hit in the head, and he wakes up in the hospital. And what we are led to believe is that from the time Ellie is knocked unconscious and falls into the water and nearly drowns until she wakes up laying in the back seat of that GMC Suburban or whatever he's driving, she's had no time awake. She hasn't been awake. She hasn't given her consent to anything. She's been asleep the whole time, which allows Joel to tell the lie that he tells to her and allows her to believe it because she has no context for anything else because she was asleep the whole time. She was knocked unconscious. They resuscitated her. She's alive, but she's still unconscious. They took her to the hospital. She was at the hospital. They said, without waking her up to say, hey, would you like us to operate on your brain and save the planet? They never did that because she was asleep. So when Joel wakes up, he wants to see her because the last time he saw her, she was dead. He was performing mouth-to-mouth resuscitation because she needed it because she was dead. They were like, no, she's fine. We were able to save her. She's fine. Well, she's not fine, says Marlene in the game, because we're taking her brain out. Right? And this is when Joel, has to do this, right? Jake, we will definitely address this whole thing about Joel the killer in a second. So that is a much better choice. The whole thing of like, if Joel finds her in the middle of murdering David, is it better than if Joel finds her after murdering David? I'm not really sure. This one I'm fucking sure. It's way better if Ellie has no chance to consent to anything because it allows us to believe that she might believe all the lies that Joel is telling her, even if she, in her mind, knows it must be a lie. She has no proof that it's not. You know what I mean? In the show, they hit him with a flashbang or whatever, and then they just take her away. He's knocked out, right? So when he wakes up, they say that she's been asking about you mostly. But don't worry, she's being prepped for surgery. You can't see her. Don't worry, we didn't tell her. We didn't scare her. She has no idea that we're going to be killing her during the surgery. So she was awake, and you talked to her all about this thing with her being immune, and she's got the brain stuff. She's got the cordyceps in the brain. We're just going to go in there, poke around a bit. You'll be fine. But actually, they're lied to her and they're going to kill her. There's no way of doing what they have to do to create a cure without killing her. This is something that, like, I think they could have been a little bit better with the dialogue here when Joel asks about her. Because, like, so our doctor says the cordyceps has been growing with her since birth. Right? So, the cordyceps has been growing with her since birth. So we're going to have to, what it's doing is, there are messaging cells in her brain that is telling cordyceps that she is cordyceps, which is why the cordyceps isn't having any effect on her, even though it's entirely within her. So we're going to go in, we're going to take out that stuff, synthesize those messaging cells, and then we're going to give them to everybody. So everyone will be able to tell cordyceps, I'm cordyceps, I'm cool, right? And his first thought says, cordyceps grows in the brain. She says, yes, it does. And immediately Joel is like, that's going to kill her. But, like, even in the old times, in the long, long ago, people would do brain surgery all the time and not necessarily kill the host, kill the person that their patient they're on. Like, so Tim says, let me get this straight. They lied to Ellie. Joel lied to Ellie. Ellie lied to Joel, but the Fireflys didn't lie to Joel. That sounds correct. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, Cinnabay, it's very true. The best option would have been for them to lie to Joel when he woke up. If they had told him she was already dead and they were going to take samples from a corpse, he'd want to see her body, right? But then they could tell him, you just can't do it yet. We have to do it. If we wait too long to take the samples, then they won't be active. So we have to do it right now. And as soon as we're done, you can see her, you can take her somewhere, you can bury her, you can give her a full funeral, whatever. We understand how devastating this must be for you, right? And that's what they could have done in the game. Because according to Joel, she was already dead. We had no idea if they were going to get her brought back to life, right? Now, Joel probably in the game wouldn't have accepted that. He wouldn't have believed them. He would have had to see for himself, right? Because he would have believed they were lying to him. But it's still the safest thing that they could have told him. So anyway, Ellie knows that she was taken into the hospital relatively unharmed, just the flashbang having gone off. And she met with Marlene, who she knows from Boston. She knows Marlene and her mom used to be friends, right? So, like, Marlene is telling her, hey, yeah, so Joel's fine. He's unconscious. We're sorry we hit him so hard. But we're so sorry. But we're going to talk to you about, the stuff. You got a cure. We're going to synthesize a cure from your brain. And she would have said, sounds good. Let's do the cure, right? Because that's what she would have said. She would have consented to a process that she did not think was going to kill her. Right? This is all, it all makes it way more unbelievable to her, all the shit that Joel says to her at the end of the episode. Because, well, no, I didn't see any dozens of other immune people. Why would they not tell me about the dozens of other immune people? See, the lie that Joel tells her only is believable to Ellie if she has no context for the rest of her time at the hospital. Like, Joel needs to think that he might have gotten away with it. He needs to be really worried that he didn't, but he has to think it's possible that he's gotten away with this lie. Now that Joel knows that Ellie was conscious when she was brought into the hospital, they talked to her about the process they were going to do. They just happened to lie to her about how it was going to kill her. Joel would be smart enough not to tell that same lie. I'm just sorry. He would have. He had to have been. Regardless, Joel says, you might not have a choice, Marlene. Even though Marlene says, I was with her when she was born. I understand how devastating this is. You might have a choice, Marlene, but I don't. I have a choice. You might not have a choice, but I do. I have a choice. I'm going to do it. So it's one guy who walks him out in the game, and he's easily able to overpower that guy without a problem, and then like asks him questions about where to go, top floor, all this kind of stuff. Top floor, out of the elevator, turn left, all this kind of stuff. But in this thing, he kills one guy with one dude's gun, and then like says, "Where is she?" And he says, "Fuck you," and he says, "I don't have time for this," and shoots that dude in the face. And then Joel is fucking Rambo, and the music is so mournful. The music tells you, Joel, no. Joel, don't do it. Joel, this can never end well. In the game, Joel has to stealth through, I don't know, 15, 20 guys. He ends up hiding behind a desk while like 3 of them run down a hallway past him. All that shit. And he in this show he ends up, there's a guy who like puts down his weapon, and Joel shoots him in the face anyway. This man surrendered. He put down his weapon, he had his hands up, and Joel shoots him in the face. They give you the option of you can, in the game, if you're good enough at the stealth mechanics, in the game, you can sneak past everybody and not fire a shot. If you're good enough at the stealth mechanics in the game, you don't have to kill anyone on your way up to rescue Ellie. And in the show, Joel kills everyone he sees. Every one of them. In not just like returning fire in self-defense, but like shoots a guy surrendering unarmed in the face. That's a line. There's a line there. I'm sorry. There's a line there's a line between the things. You know what I mean? Like shooting the first 2 guys to like escape from him being their prisoner, fine. Shooting all the guys who were shooting at him, I have no problem with that. They had Joel shoot a surrendering, unarmed man in the face. Make a choice to do this. There's something that they talk about in the series that, like, I mean, in the game, it's a game, right? It's a game. You kill everybody, right? You kill everybody in the game. You kill, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of people and clickers and stuff in the game. Lots of them. It's a game. This is the way the games are built. In the game they also talk about how Joel and Tess are bad people who do really bad things. They talk a little bit about Tommy and Joel, all the stuff they did when they were moving from Texas after the outbreak happened. Right? They tell you all these horrible, how bad of a person Joel was, how he killed a lot of innocent people. And they're relying on you to fill in a lot of the gaps, to trust them. No, Joel's a bad guy. You don't want to get involved with Joel. In the same episode that we see him open up and confess to this girl that he has become a surrogate father to, that one night in his grief after losing his daughter, he put a gun to his temple and fully intended to kill himself, but flinched when he pulled the trigger. We see him look at her with an absolute overpowering sense of paternal love and devotion as she feeds a giraffe. In the same episode we see that. They also force us to acknowledge Joel's a fucking maniac. Like, he is capable of despicable acts of violence in the service of, he believes, saving his second daughter's life. And that's the quandary. That's the quandary. When I played this game for the first time, the way I described it was, what Joel did was wrong, and I would have done it too. I don't know whether I would know that what I was doing was wrong while I was doing it. The same way Joel, as Pedro Pascal says, it's the easiest choice in the world for him to save his daughter and doom humanity. It's the easiest choice in the world. Morally, what he did was awful. But you have to do it. He had to do it. Any father would do the same. And that's the scary part. Because you put yourself in that position where, like, an objective, like, watcher, observer of this, you know that the thing that Joel has done is wrong. And also it had to be done. And I would have done the same thing. It's an impossible choice. Even taking emotion out of it, it's an impossible choice. But when the emotion is there, that choice becomes very easy. Also, there's a small detail when he finally gets to the operating room. He tells the doctor, the nurses, to unhook her, take her off, take all that off of her, unhook her. I'm going to take her with me. And the surgeon says, "I'm not going to let you take her." And he stands there with a scalpel. And in the game lets you kill him whatever way you want. You have to kill him. The game says you have to kill him. The game says you have to kill him. You have to kill the surgeon. But the game lets you decide. The game lets you decide. The thing that I did, the thing that I thought the game wanted me to do, was he's holding the scalpel up, and if you get close enough to the doctor, there's a prompt on screen to hit a button where you grab the scalpel, you grab the man's hand and force him to stab himself in the throat with the scalpel. That's what I thought the game wanted me to do. That's what I did. But you can shoot him. I've seen an episode. I've seen a video on YouTube where somebody takes a flamethrower to him. There's a flamethrower in the game. The game also lets you, if you want, kill the nurses. The game allows you to be as bloodthirsty as off the rails as you want to be. The game lets you do that. I was so scared that the show was going to make that choice for me as well. Because Joel, in the show, when the guy says, I won't let you take her, Joel kind of like says, get out of here, and just shoots him in the head. Shoots him in the forehead, like, boom, done. What are you doing? Come walking toward me with a scalpel, I have a gun. Boom, you're dead. Now you unhook her. Turn around. When Joel said to the nurses, turn around, I thought he was going to shoot them too. I was so scared. One of the nurses tonight in the episode was played by Laura Bailey, who voices Abby. I did not know that, Tim. That's very interesting. I did not know if they were going to show us some scenes that were shown in flashback in episode part 2. They show you scenes that happened during this timeline in episode 1. They were just never in the first game, where they show you the doctor talking to Marlene, explaining exactly what the science is and how conflicted the doctor is about performing such a surgery that will guarantee to kill this child. On the chance, the very good chance, but on the chance that he might be able to synthesize a vaccine out of it. They show you the doctor struggling with that choice. I thought they might have updated that and put that scene in here to give you a little bit more weight to Joel killing him now in this chronological timeline. But yeah. He takes her. He takes her to the parking garage. He's confronted by Marlene. Marlene makes a good case. Makes a good case for it. For her point of view as to why he should allow this to happen. But he shoots her anyway. And just like they do in the game, they show her, Marlene, making her case, and they cut to him driving away with Ellie in the back seat. They cut back to, as he describes what happened, him holding a gun in the hand that's holding her up like this, so he's able to shoot Marlene from underneath Ellie as he's carrying her. And then he goes back and he shoots Marlene again. Marlene says, please let me go. He says, you just come after her. Shoots her again in cold blood. Shoots Marlene right in the face in cold blood. And they had to have Joel tell a different lie tonight in the show. Did you notice that? How he added something? He added a detail. Because in the game, he says there are dozens of people just like you, all immune, but the scientists have given up looking for a cure because it doesn't work. They ran their tests on you to see if you were different. You're the same as everybody else, all these other people who were there. And then he says, when they were done with their tests, I didn't wait around. I took you when I left. Because fuck them. Fireflies are no help to anybody, right? We left. In the game, he does not say that, like, oh, all these people are dead now. In the game, that's not a thing that happens. In the show, he says, like, where are my clothes? I had to get you out of there. Raiders attacked the hospital. And she says, were people hurt? And he says, yes. So he gives Ellie the information that raiders attacked the hospital and killed all those people. She asks, was Marlene okay? He can't answer that question because that's too big of a lie for him to tell. So he just lets it sit there. So that he has to augment the lie, adding in a detail that raiders attacked the hospital and I barely got you out of there. It's a, like Brent saying, covering his tracks a little better. Like, he's adding details. Like, somebody who was like people who are trained to spot liars will tell you one of the greatest signs of people lying is them embellishing their story in the middle of it. If raiders attacked the hospital and killed a bunch of people, including Marlene, who you know that Ellie has a history of, that's the shit you lead with. You don't add that in later. When somebody asks about, like, where are my clothes? Oh, right, I should have thought of that part of this lie. I'll add this in. I'll add the lie in. I'll add in that they was attacked by raiders and we barely got out of there alive, because that's the first thing he could think of to explain why she didn't have her clothes. If that was the truth, you would have said, we barely got out of there alive. Raiders attacked the hospital. Marlene was killed. It was a horrible thing. If that was the truth. But what about the immunity? Of course, the immunity. No, there were a bunch of immune people there, and there are dozens like you, apparently. But the scientists can't do anything with you. They can't synthesize a cure. They tried. They ran tests on you. It's not going to work with you. They've officially given up looking for a cure. So adding that detail when he does makes his story less believable. We'll see how they handle the whole Ellie finding out the truth bit in the next season. But yeah. Scooter saying, do you think they would have given the vaccine to everyone, though? I feel like anyone who could go through with this would be very selective with handling that cure out to anyone who isn't part of their cause. Yeah, I think the idealists in the group, the people who are actually there trying to save the world, I think Marlene is among them. would have been like, yes, let's synthesize as much of this vaccine as we possibly can. Let's tell people we have this. Let's give it out for free. Let's save the world. And the people who are realizing that they could become kings if they have the power to save the planet in this syringe, those people, well, power corrupts. They're absolutely in a different timeline. If they're able to make the vaccine, the person who is in charge of the Fireflys becomes a dictator who rules over all and will only give out this vaccine to the people who can give him or her what they want. Okay, you're allowed to stay. There's no nightmares in this one. Unless you have nightmares about having to make a choice between saving your surrogate daughter or saving the planet. And then when you choose to save your surrogate daughter, you have to murder like 15 people. I mean, if you have nightmares about that, then... the moment, though, when Ellie knows, you can tell that she knows, and because she wouldn't ask him to swear about the Fireflys. She wouldn't ask him to do that unless she already knew the answer. But she can't accept that that's the answer because if that's true, if it is true that Joel could do all of that and then could lie about it and then could make that choice, which she definitely would not have wanted him to make. If all of that is true, if he is lying, then that's not something she's willing to face. You know? So that moment where she makes him tell the lie again and swear to it. And she pauses for as long as she does and just says, okay, and that's the end of it. Man, that killed me again tonight. Joel made so many decisions at the end of this show, at the end of this episode, that were impossible decisions to make, and every single one of them was wrong, and every single one of them was a decision that everyone would have made in that situation. That's the thing. That's the scary part of it. That's the scary part, okay? A father protecting his daughter no matter what. A father having to lie to his daughter to protect her and to protect his relationship with her for as long as he can. Those are impossible decisions. The right one is to not murder 15 people to rescue her. The right one is to not lie to her about it. Those are the right decisions. But they're not the decisions that anyone would make. And that's why the narrative of the game, is so brilliant, so haunting. And that's why this series is going to be such. I haven't looked online. I don't know what the reaction is to this from the millions of people who are watching this show not knowing what the ending of the game is. I don't know what those people are feeling about it. When I experienced that narrative at the end of the game for the first time, like it hit me so hard. I had to process it for like 2 days. It is an impossible thing. God, kudos to Bella Ramsey and to Pedro Pascal for perfectly playing these impossible choices to making them even more impossible. Now we just have to look forward to season 2, which I'm sure will be coming out in 2025, because it took them forever to film this one. Then we got to figure out how much of Last of Us Part 2, the game, is going to be in Last of Us, the show, season 2. Because it looks like they're going to try and do Last of Us Part 2, the game, in 2 seasons. So season 2 and season 3 will both be a part of this game. Anticlimactic is like, it's not the end though. Like if that, this isn't the series finale, it's the season finale. It's the season finale. Like, you have to know that, like, this is the beginning of something. I don't know. It's really hard. Jake, I don't know how they're gonna do the order of things. Like I don't know how they're gonna do it. Oh, you can absolutely do his death mid-season, Jake. I mean, it'll be fucking hardcore, but you can do it mid-season. Sure you can. You could do it at the end of the first episode of season 2. You could do it. Because it should fucking punch you in the fucking gut the way it does in the game. It should murder you. Out of nowhere, this thing that we thought it was Joel's story. It's not Joel's story anymore. It's Ellie's story. Like that, and then you do the rest of it the way they do it, in flashbacks. I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know that they will do it that way, but like, you'd have to mess with the chronology of the second game a lot. You'd have to mess with the chronology of the second game a lot, you know, to make it the end of season 2 be Joel killing. Yeah. Well, listen. Yeah, when they killed Glenn, I think there's enough people who, yeah, that was a tough one because it's a different thing, and I think that HBO has earned a lot of leeway from a lot of like television fans, people who are big on like, you know, event television. Tim, I believe there is 6 years between game 1 and game 2. I believe there's 6 years. 6 years in between the games. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff to cover, but they do a lot of that in flashback, and I think it's better used in flashback than trying to like tell the whole thing chronologically correct. You know what I mean? Like, chronologically, yeah. Oh, Jake, let's not even throw. Game of Thrones was so bad and so. I'm talking about like fucking Succession and White Lotus and all these things that are current. People still going ape shit over what's the one with Zendaya in it? That thing? Like there are yeah. I forget what the hell that's called. There's a lot of stuff that people still trust HBO to tell the stories that they tell. Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones was fucked when they were like, hey, let's start doing these. We'll just, because George R.R. Martin will keep pumping out books. We'll just keep doing it forever. We'll just keep doing it forever. And then George R.R. Martin's like, what if I stopped writing books? Euphoria. No, Euphoria is not my cup of tea. Fuck that show. I'm not watching Euphoria. Now that I've read the shit that I've read about the creator and showrunner of Euphoria, which, by the way, I don't know what that guy's name is, but Google that guy's name and Scandal and find the Rolling Stone article. I think they're going to rescind that greenlit thing of season 2 of Velma. I think they greenlit that early, and they were like, "Oh no, actually, we shouldn't have done this." So, yeah. No, I have not watched Severance on Apple TV. I don't have Apple TV. That's the one streaming service I don't have. I need to get that, I guess. I need to watch Severance, but I have not watched that. That feels like something I'm going to binge once all the seasons are done, because those are the kind I cannot wait. I can't wait between episodes for a show like Severance. I need to know immediately what's happening. So I can't do that. But yeah. So this ended up being longer than I thought it was going to be. I suppose it deserves that because it is the season finale. I don't know. I don't know what the next thing we're going to do is, but yeah. But anyway, we'll get back onto the Red Dead stuff on Thursday, and from then we'll figure out what we're gonna do beyond there. But yeah, I've heard amazing things about Severance. My buddy who's in the industry has told me about it. So yeah, I trust him certainly. So there's some really good stuff out there. Yeah, we'll see what we'll do. We'll have to watch. See what we're gonna do from now on. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here. Like, it's weird to do the Mandalorian in the middle of it. Like, it's already episode 3 of the season. I'm not gonna do reviews of episode 1 and episode 2. So yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2 on Thursday, everybody. So that'll be hopefully a good long stream, get a lot of stuff out of the way. But until then, thanks for watching. And until season 2 gets done, until season 2 of The Last of Us comes out, like I said, probably early 2025. Until then, I guess all we have to do is to endure and survive. Until Red Dead on Thursday. Good night, everyone.